The 2025 NBA playoffs didn't waste a second getting wild. And you know, from jaw-dropping buzzer beaters to record-breaking blowouts, the first round gave us some of the most unforgettable moments in years. Picking just 10 top plays? Not easy, but every entry here earned its spot, and you're about to see why. Kicking things off, there was a performance that quietly shook the playoffs. Ty Jerome wasn't even supposed to be a key piece in Cleveland's rotation. But in Game 1 against Miami, he turned into a flamethrower. Off the bench, he exploded for 28 points, and what made it wild was how 16 of those came in the fourth quarter alone. The Heat were clawing for a comeback, and every time they got close, Jerome answered. Whether it was a floater in traffic, a quick pull-up three, or slicing through the lane like it was practice, you could see the game tilting, the energy shifting. Jerome didn't just help, he took over. And his outburst was a major reason the Cavaliers walked off with a dominant 21-point win. That kind of debut, it doesn't just earn respect, it changes the scouting report. Just a few nights later, another reminder came from a familiar face. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the smooth assassin for Oklahoma City, had already helped torch Memphis by 51 points in Game 1. But Game 2, he made sure everyone knew it wasn't a fluke. He dropped 27 points, but it wasn't the number. It was the feel, the control, the poise. Shai plays like time slows down around him. He drives like he's reading defenders a second before they move. His ability to shift pace mid-air, absorb contact, and still finish with grace. It looked like poetry in motion. And every time the Grizzlies tried to cut the lead, he calmly found a bucket like it was scripted. He didn't just score, he dissected. Now let's talk about that Game 1 blowout, because it was more than just a lopsided score. Oklahoma City embarrassed Memphis 131-80. That's not just a win, that's an NBA record. It became the largest margin ever for a Game 1 in the first round. But what made it insane was how many players contributed. Aaron Wiggins and Jalen Williams combined for 41 points, and 6 different Thunder players hit double digits. The passes were fast, the cuts were sharper than ever, and the ball zipped around like it was on a string. Meanwhile, the Grizzlies looked frozen, stunned by the pace, overwhelmed by the energy. It felt like every trip down the court ended in a clean look. On defense, OKC suffocated Memphis, forcing tough shots and jumping passing lanes like they'd seen the plays in advance. This wasn't just execution. This was domination. But the Thunder weren't done making noise. Fast forward to Game 3, and suddenly the tables were turned. Memphis came out swinging, and at halftime, Oklahoma City was down 26 points. Most young teams fold in that moment. They slow down, lose confidence, and fade. But OKC, they turned up. The second half was pure chaos, in the best way possible. They locked in on defense, forced turnovers, and suddenly those transition threes started falling. Play by play, they chipped away until the game was tied, and then they surged ahead. That comeback didn't just stun Memphis, it made history. A 26-point halftime comeback is the largest ever in the NBA playoffs. What made it more remarkable was how calm they stayed. No panic, just poise, hustle, and belief. And even after all that, they still weren't finished. The numbers from Game 1 kept echoing through the series. That 51-point margin, it wasn't just the biggest of 2025's first round, it was the 5th largest in all of NBA playoff history. Let that sink in. Not 5th largest for this season, not just in Game 1s, 5th all-time. And when you dig into the details, it becomes clear why. Oklahoma City forced 24 turnovers in that game and turned those into 27 points. They ran the floor like a track team, crashing passing lanes and launching fast breaks before Memphis could even react. Every possession looked like a mismatch. And it wasn't just about scoring, it was about effort. The Thunder didn't just play harder, they played smarter, faster, and with a hunger that made it feel personal. The message was clear. This wasn't just a young team getting lucky. This was a squad with something to prove, and the fire to back it up. And if that defense wasn't enough to make a statement, their offense turned the volume up even higher. It wasn't just the stars carrying the load. What stood out most was how every player on the floor seemed ready. 6 different Thunder players scoring in double digits in a playoff game? That's not just good coaching. That's a locker room full of guys locked into the same vision. The trust, the unselfish passing, the constant cutting, it all felt bigger than the moment. This wasn't just a young team trying to win. It was a team that looked like they'd been here before and planned to stick around a while. Now let's jump back to Cleveland, because the Cavaliers were writing their own story in the East. Their Game 1 win against the Heat was more than just a victory. It was a message. They dropped 121 points that night, their highest scoring playoff game since that legendary 2018 series run. But what made it special wasn't just the box score. It was the rhythm, the pace, the way they carved up Miami's defense with total control. From ball movement to spacing, it was like every piece fit perfectly. Miami had no time to adjust before they were buried under a pile of buckets. And what made that Cleveland performance even more unforgettable was how it happened. Most teams don't come out swinging that hard in a Game 1. They feel things out. They test the water. But the Cavs? They went for the knockout in the first round. They shot nearly 55% from the field, held Miami to just 100 points, and dictated every second of that game. It wasn't just offense, it was control, and that control never slipped. Donovan Mitchell played like the floor general he was meant to be, reading the Heat defense like a book and finding shooters at the perfect moment. And when Evan Mobley started hitting mid-range jumpers with confidence, it felt like there was no weakness left to attack. Now, as much as Cleveland was flexing in the East, let's be real. This year's first round belonged to Oklahoma City. That 51-point win wasn't just a beatdown, it was the largest Game 1 victory ever in first-round history. Think about how many playoff games have been played in NBA history. Think about how many legends have stepped on that court, and then realize that this young Thunder team just dropped a margin that's never been seen before in that setting. That's more than a highlight. That's a stamp in the record books. But even in that historic blowout, one name kept standing out: Ty Jerome. The guy had already shocked everyone with his fourth-quarter explosion. But it wasn't just the points. It was the timing, the confidence. In the biggest moments, with the shot clock winding down, he stepped into big threes like he'd been doing it his whole career. He hit 6 shots in that fourth quarter alone, 3 of them from deep, and you could just see the belief ripple through his teammates. It's one thing to play well in garbage time. It's another thing entirely to take over when the game is still on the line. That stretch turned him into a fan favorite overnight. Even Jalen Williams, who had already proven himself throughout the regular season, elevated his game in a way that made you forget how young this core actually is. In the midst of that massive comeback in Game 3, he was the engine, pushing the pace, crashing the boards, taking charges. He didn't care about the box score. He just wanted to win, and you could feel that energy in every loose ball and hustle play. So when you look back at this first round, the defense, the records, the comebacks, the unlikely heroes, it wasn't just about teams advancing. It was about statements being made. Cleveland reminded everyone that they're still dangerous when healthy and locked in. Oklahoma City showed the world they're not just a fun young squad, they're a threat to anyone. And players like Ty Jerome proved that when the lights are the brightest, sometimes the ones you least expect can steal the show. These weren't just plays, they were chapters in a story that's still being written. And if this was just the first round, you already know the rest of these playoffs are going to be something special. So stay tuned, because the next chapter's just getting started.